The notice was taped to my front door, printed in bold red letters. Violation, excessive vehicles on property. Beneath it, a fine of $1,200 and a demand for immediate compliance. I stood there, still in my grease-stained work shirt, holding the letter in disbelief. I wasn't just frustrated, I was insulted. They were accusing me of turning my driveway into a junkyard, but those cars they complained about, they weren't junk. They were part of the small restoration business I ran right here in the neighborhood, the same business that had saved this street years ago. My name's Ethan Cole, and I've lived on Maple Brook Drive for over a decade. When I moved in, the place was nearly abandoned. Foreclosed homes, overgrown lawns, and families struggling to stay afloat after the market crash. I bought the first house cheap, fixed it up, and over the next several years, bought more as they went on sale. I rented them out to good people, veterans, single parents, young couples trying to start a life. I made sure this community could breathe again. But the new HOA president, Karen Dalton, didn't care about that. She moved in 6 months ago, fresh manicure, clipboard always in hand, and a voice that carried across the street like a megaphone. She treated the HOA like her personal kingdom. That morning, she strutted across my driveway while I was checking the oil on a client's car. "Ethan, this is completely unacceptable," she said, tapping her clipboard. "Your vehicles are violating HOA policy. Maximum 2 per property, and you've got..." She paused, squinting. "What is that, 6? 8, I corrected calmly. "But they're not all mine. 2 belong to tenants, 3 are customer restorations. They'll be gone soon." She gave me that tight, patronizing smile I'd come to know. "Rules are rules. I'll have to raise your HOA fee. Triple, actually. Consider it a lesson in compliance." I almost laughed, but something inside me snapped instead. I had poured my heart into this neighborhood, helped families find homes when banks turned their backs, and now this woman thought she could find me into submission. "Karen," I said evenly, "you might want to check your files before you send me another letter." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, trust me, I know exactly who lives here." No, she didn't. 2 weeks later, another letter came. $3,600 fine due immediately or face lien action. That's when I decided it was time to remind the HOA who really owned Maple Brook Drive. I called an emergency HOA meeting. Karen smirked when she saw my name on the agenda, probably expecting a groveling apology. The small community center buzzed with murmurs as neighbors gathered. Most were tired of Karen's constant patrols and unnecessary fines. When it was my turn, I stood up, holding a folder thick with paperwork. "I'd like to address the recent fines levied against me for vehicle violations." Karen cut in sharply. "You're in violation, Mr. Cole. You don't need to make this theatrical." "Oh, this isn't theater," I said, opening the folder. "This is ownership documentation. You see, over the past decade, I've purchased the deeds for every home on this block." I began laying them out on the table, one by one, 11 property deeds with my name on each. Gasps filled the room. So technically, every driveway, every mailbox, every inch of this street falls under properties I maintain and lease out. Karen's face turned pale. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," I said, "just diligent. When the bank foreclosed on these homes years ago, I stepped in to save them. The HOA wouldn't exist if I hadn't rebuilt this neighborhood." I looked around the room, locking eyes with the neighbors. "Many of you moved into homes I repaired. Paid below market rent so you could get back on your feet. And now I'm being fined for keeping this community alive." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. One of the tenants, Mrs. Ramirez, stood up and said, "Ethan's the reason my kids have a backyard. You can't treat him like that." Others nodded, voices rising in support. Karen tried to regain control. "The rules, the HOA bylaws." "Funny thing about bylaws," I interrupted, pulling out one last document. Section 4.3 states that any property owner with majority ownership has voting control over the board. I own all but one house here. Meaning, as of this meeting, I'm the majority stakeholder. Silence. Then whispers. Then realization. I smiled slightly. "Effective immediately," I'm calling for a vote to dissolve the current HOA board due to abuse of authority and mismanagement. All in favor. Nearly every hand went up. Karen's clipboard trembled as her authority crumbled before her eyes. Within a week, the HOA was restructured. Fines were cancelled, unnecessary fees removed, and new community-led rules were introduced, ones that actually made sense. We started hosting block parties, built a shared garden, and repaired the old playground the HOA had neglected for years. Karen, unable to handle her loss of control, sold her house and moved out a month later. The neighborhood sighed in relief. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the street I'd rebuilt from the ground up, I leaned against one of my freshly restored cars and smiled. I wasn't just a homeowner or a landlord. I was a caretaker, of people, of dreams, of second chances. The lesson was simple but powerful. True ownership isn't about control, it's about responsibility. Karen thought power came from authority. But real power, it comes from building something worth protecting. And on Maple Brook Drive, every house, every family, and every engine I tuned was proof of that.